Dive in with me here for a sec. Bitcoin. You're at least intrigued by it, right?
At least a little, yeah.
Lately, there's this buzz, this whole crypto island thing.
Right.
Places positioning themselves as like digital finance havens, sun, sand, Satoshi, that whole thing. Sounds kind of dreamy, no?
Yeah, who wouldn't want that?
But then you sent over this talk by Giacomo Zucco from Bitcoin Atlantis.
Yeah, he gets it.
And he seems to think, and I'm simplifying here, that Bitcoin Island might actually be a real movement, a real possibility.
Interesting.
But Crypto Island usually just crashes and burns.
Yeah, a lot of those don't seem to work out so well.
So where do we even start unpacking this?
Well, I mean, Zucco would know.
He's seen it all.
He's watched this whole crypto island thing evolve.
Right.
I mean, even the term, back in like 2013, crypto itself, it was practically insider jargon, you know?
Oh, totally. Like whispered amongst like cryptography nerds, right?
Exactly. Crypto island didn't even exist.
It's true. Back then it was all about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah.
Not this sprawling, often confusing world of crypto that we're trying to navigate today.
It's a jungle out there.
So
Yeah.
how did we get from Bitcoin to island hopping? Like what happened there?
Well, as Bitcoin started gaining traction, especially during those early market booms, everybody wanted in, right?
Of course.
And that's where this broader term, crypto, really emerged, alongside this like wave of projects all trying to bottle that Bitcoin magic.
Cash in.
Exactly. And that's where your islands come in. Suddenly you have places like, think about the Isle of Man
Famous for, what, tailless cats?
and motorcycle races,
Right.
deciding to become these hubs for this, brave new world.
The Isle of Man. I mean, Zucco actually calls out some pretty big names linked to that early movement. Max Kaiser, even Brock Pierce pops up, like, throughout this whole Crypto Island saga, apparently.
Oh, yeah. He's a recurring character in this story for sure.
So what actually happened there with the Isle of Man?
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
2014, Bitcoin's on fire,
Yeah.
coming off this huge price surge.
Hot.
The Isle of Man sees this, and they're like, okay, we need to ride this wave.
Smart, at least in theory.
So they launched this big initiative trying to become like the haven for crypto businesses. They even started minting physical Bitcoins.
No way, really. They had, like, Isle of Man Bitcoins.
Oh, yeah. It was a whole thing. Media frenzy, the works.
Wow.
Problem is, this all coincided with a massive market downturn.
So the timing wasn't ideal.
You could say that again. And just like that, the enthusiasm completely fizzled out. The Isle of Man was left with, well, a lot of half-baked initiatives, a lot of disillusioned investors.
It's like they skipped a few steps. Instead of saying, okay, what problems can we actually solve with this new technology? It was more like, how do we cash in on the hype while it lasts?
Exactly. And the thing is, the Isle of Man, that's just one example.
Well, I'm sure.
Zucco points to this pattern, right? This same cycle repeating in places like Malta, Vanuatu.
Same story, different island.
Every time. Surge of excitement, fueled by speculation, followed by a crash landing when the market inevitably corrects.
Okay, so this isn't just bad luck. Like, there's something else going on here, right? There's a fundamental flaw in the crypto approach itself that kind of sets these projects up for failure from the get-go.
That's Zucco's argument exactly.
Yeah.
And this is what leads to, I think, a really critical distinction.
Let's hear it.
Bitcoin versus crypto.
Okay, so you've got my brain working overtime here.
Sorry.
No, this is good. But isn't Bitcoin part of the crypto world? Like, where do we even draw that line?
Right, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It feels like it.
But Zucco, he makes this point, this really interesting argument that crypto, in a way, is almost like fiat's immune response to Bitcoin.
Okay, back up. Say that again. Crypto
The
is...
existing financial system, right?
Right.
Trying to neutralize this new threat.
Whoa, okay. So it's not just like riding Bitcoin's coattails. It's actively trying to, contain it.
Yeah, in a way, Zucco uses this, I think, brilliant analogy
Good analogy.
of a virus and antibodies.
Okay.
So they might look similar on the surface.
Right, like how a virus mimics a cell to sneak in.
Exactly. But their goals are totally opposed.
Yeah.
One wants to keep you healthy, the other, not so much.
Okay, that's a powerful image.
Right.
So crypto is like the body trying to fight off Bitcoin, even if it means sort of mimicking some of its features along the way.
That's the idea. And this plays out in how they work, in their core principles even. Zucco points out these key contrasts. First one is time preference.
Time preference.
So Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the tortoise, not the hare. It's about playing the long game, low and slow, building something sustainable.
Which takes patience. And, let's be honest, that's in pretty short supply these days.
Tell me about it. Crypto. Crypto's all about instant gratification.
Get rich quick.
Exactly. Think back to those ICOs. Remember those?
Yeah.
Promising the moon overnight. That's high time preference in action.
Definitely not slow and steady.
Right. Bitcoin, on the other hand, like our approach to this podcast,
Hey, we do our research.
we take the time to understand the fundamentals, building a solid foundation for hopefully some lasting knowledge.
We're aiming for that slow and steady knowledge growth.
Exactly.
Okay, so one is like building a house of cards,
Maybe.
and the other one's meticulously laying down brick, like a solid foundation.
I like that. Building a skyscraper on bedrock versus, sand. And that leads to the next big contrast Zucco talks about. Integrity versus hype.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Integrity versus hype.
So the Bitcoin community. Ruthlessly self-critical.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Always questioning, poking holes, even in their own arguments.
So they're like that friend we all have who's like the skeptical one at the party.
Right.
Like a little annoying,
Right.
but ultimately they save you from like the bad investment or whatever.
Exactly. Super valuable. Crypto, though. Crypto thrives on that hype. Celebrity endorsements, flashy promises, that whole this time it's different, get in now allure.
Substance versus surface appeal.
You got it.
Okay, so what about the actual tech side of things? How does that factor in?
Well, Zucco argues that with Bitcoin, there's a real emphasis on stability over novelty.
Interesting.
So think of it like the Internet protocol. It stayed remarkably consistent,
Right.
which has allowed everything else to be built on top of
It
it.
just works.
Crypto, on the other hand, is always chasing the next big thing, even if it means constantly reinventing the wheel, which, sacrifices that stability.
So it's like crypto is trying to build a skyscraper but on sand, while Bitcoin is carefully laying down that bedrock.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But how does this play out in the real world, like with these crypto islands? Okay, so Bitcoin is the bedrock. Crypto is that skyscraper on sand.
It's a good way to put it.
But where does that leave these crypto islands? Like, how do we even get from chasing hype to actually building something real?
Well, Zucco draws this really interesting parallel
Okay.
between Bitcoin and the early days of the Internet.
The internet.
Yeah, remember those days, dial-up modems, AOL trial CD?
It was like ancient history.
Right. But back then, not everyone was sold on the Internet.
It's true.
In fact, companies like Microsoft, they were busy building their own kind of walled gardens online.
Their own little online worlds.
Exactly. Kind of like some of these crypto projects now trying to create their own ecosystems.
Instead of embracing, the open protocol.
Yeah, Bitcoin's open standard.
So it's like history repeating itself.
That's Zucco's point. And this is where he brings up that great anecdote about Bill Gates
Oh, yeah.
and his book, The Road Ahead. Did you ever read that one?
I can't say that I did.
So initially, Gates basically dismisses the Internet in the book.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Called it a fad.
He called the internet a fad.
Straight up. Obviously, he changed his tune later.
I would hope so.
But he actually had to rewrite a whole chunk of the book.
You're kidding.
Nope.
What? Talk about eating your words.
Because he realized he'd totally missed the boat.
I mean, that's got to be humbling for a tech giant like Bill Gates.
Right. It just goes to show understanding these fundamental principles.
Like open versus closed systems.
Exactly. It's not just about the tech itself, but the philosophy behind it.
The why, not just the what.
And that takes us back to the islands.
Okay.
Because just like the Internet thrived on openness and interoperability, Zucco believes places like Madeira should focus on that same thing for Bitcoin.
So create the space for it to flourish.
Exactly. He really hammers home this idea that Madeira needs to embrace the core principles of Bitcoin. We talked about them. Scarcity over inflation, privacy over surveillance, building a community of actual builders, creators, not just influencers, looking for the next pump and dump scheme.
Okay, pump and dump. For those of us who haven't been on that particular crypto roller coaster, what does that even mean?
So essentially, it's artificially inflating the price of something through, hype misinformation,
Got it.
and then selling off quickly for a profit.
Leaving everyone else holding the bag.
Exactly. The opposite of sustainable growth.
So it sounds like Zucco's prescription for a healthy Bitcoin island is less hype, more substance,
100%. Less flash, more function.
and less top-down control, more of that bottom-up growth we were talking about.
You got it. Driven by individuals who actually understand and value Bitcoin.
Not because some government is telling them to use it.
Right. It's about creating the conditions where people choose Bitcoin because they see its value.
So maybe the real Bitcoin island isn't a physical place at all,
Ooh, interesting.
but more like The community we build around these shared principles.
I like that.
A community that values long-term thinking, integrity, and financial sovereignty.
It's a powerful vision.
It really is. And that takes us right back to that thought-provoking question from Zucco.
Let's hear it.
If you were designing a Bitcoin island, what would be your non-negotiables? What are those core principles you'd build on to make sure it thrives, unlike those fleeting crypto islands? What's the bedrock belief?
It's a question worth sitting with. Because ultimately, the success of any Bitcoin island, real or metaphorical, depends on the very foundation it's built upon. And as Zucco reminds us, a foundation of hype and speculation is bound to crumble. But one anchored in the enduring principles of Bitcoin, well, that just might weather any storm.
Solid ground, not sandcastles. This has been a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us, and keep those brain gears turning, everyone.